How much did I spend to self-publish my first book? Well, I spent $1,177.15. We're going to dive into those numbers. And I'm also going to show you how those numbers could have been as low as $200 to $300. Because honestly, hearing those big $1,000 numbers, they can be kind of scary, and it doesn't have to be. I don't want you to think that self-publishing is a pay-to-play game. I want you to know that you can do it and you don't have to spend an arm and a leg for it. Before I jump into all of that, I need to give you a little bit of a channel update. So one of the things that has come with self-publishing my book is that I'm actually really starting to create a career out of this. I want to be a career author. That is my goal. I have lots of stories I want to tell, and writing and editing those stories takes time. So this is not a goodbye video. I'm not quitting YouTube. I'm still going to be making videos. But the weekly schedule that I've been keeping for the last year and change, that's going to shift a little bit. And instead of being every single week, I will post as often as I possibly can. So just be prepared that there are going to be Wednesdays where a new video doesn't go up. I will make sure to start using the community tab more because I know it's there, and I'll be perfectly straight with you. I've been lazy. So I will start using that community tab more to keep you up to date of, hey, this is when the next video comes out, and you can be prepared for that and know that it's coming. So I'm not quitting YouTube, but I can't manage to do a YouTube video every week and post to Instagram as often as I need to and keep up with a newsletter and be writing books and editing books. It has just been a little on the overwhelming side trying to keep up with everything. And I want to find my best life through writing, and finding my best life means putting first things first and making sure that what I'm doing aligns with the goals I actually have. So this YouTube channel has never been something that I wanted to be a source of income or something that I was hoping would push me to the top of the author world. That's never been the purpose of this. The purpose of this YouTube channel is I want to give back. I want to share information that I've learned. I want to help other authors feel seen and feel like they belong and that their process is okay and that they don't have to fit and conform to some crazy thing that doesn't make sense to them that is said in the author world. That's why I talk a lot about discovery writing. It's why I give tips on how to design your own covers. Because for some people, designing their own cover is something they actually want to do and they want to get good at that. Or they want to know when their cover designer gives them something, whether or not that was actually what they needed, or if their book now is going to struggle because the cover isn't correct. Those are all things that I want to share with you. I want to give back to the other self-publishing authors who are also starting out. That's why I do this. So knowing that that's my goal with this channel, I'm shifting away from trying to desperately grow it like it's going to be a source of income for me. I don't want it to be a source of income. I kind of like that it's just you and me, and we sit down and I talk to you about what's working and what's not, and I give you tips and I give you help. That is what I like and where I'm happy at this point in time. That might change later on, but right now, that's where I want this YouTube channel to be. So I will still be posting consistently. You will still get videos. They just won't be every single week. Now, let's break down that $1,177.15 that I spent, and let's talk about how you can lower that number if your goals align with that. So the first thing that I spent money on, I wouldn't necessarily suggest it's what you first spend your money on, but it's what I did because everything lined up well for me to do it. Every Black Friday, ProWritingAid puts their lifetime license on half off. I bought that. So what was going to be a $400 purchase went down to a $200 purchase. Well worth the money. I hope that they continue to do that on through the future. I think it is one of the best deals in writing that you can get. For $200, you will have ProWritingAid for the rest of your life. It's fantastic and I love it. And so that was the first thing I did. That took care of my copy editor. So without having to pay for a copy editor for one book, which runs between $200. I think I've seen some people on Fiverr that'll do it for as little as $75, $50. But I wanted control. That's one thing that was really important to me, is I wanted control over everything that was happening to my book. So ProWritingAid for me is the best option there, because between ProWritingAid and the Chicago Style Guide and a few other things that I use, like Google, to help me know what the copy editing should look like, and then input from other people, beta readers, that was enough for me. And I was happy with that. And I've yet to have anybody come at me with my book saying, oh, it's riddled with spelling errors and this, that, and the other. I did find a couple errors that I will be going back in and fixing, just with like spaces ended up with my M dashes where there aren't supposed to be spaces, that kind of thing. Little stuff like that, that honestly, most readers don't know the difference. I know I didn't know the difference when I was reading. Like, that was not something that I knew until I had to figure out how to do it myself. So it's the little stuff like that that went through. But other than that, I do know that because of ProWritingAid and using that along with all of the information that I've learned personally through Google and other manuscripts that help with copy editing, that I'm putting out a professional quality in a copy edit. The next thing that I bought, and again, I wouldn't necessarily suggest you buy them in this order, but I bought Book Blurb Magic, which is a course by Jessie Kniff. And this was a fantastic course. It taught me how to write my own blurb. At the end of the course, she has an offer where if you promote her, whether writing a review of the course and emailing it to her to put up on her website, or promoting her through social media, what have you, she will look over your blurb for you at the very end and just give you like a quick fast, hey, shift this, shift this, shift this if you need it. And I got to the end and I wrote the blurb and I sent out the review and I posted about her on social media. And then I sent her my blurb, and she read through it and she said, actually, this looks really great. I don't have anything that I changed. So that was super validating. Like, yes, I can do this. I can write my own blurb. And it's all thanks to her lessons and her course. So if you want more about that, Jessie Kniff has an Instagram account where she puts tons of information, free blurb writing information, to help you write your own blurb. She also has a newsletter, which is fantastic. It's hilarious. I love it. It is my favorite newsletter. Out of everything I receive, I like hers the best. And she gives you a blurb cheat sheet for signing up for her newsletter. So very much worth your email in exchange for that cheat sheet. But the information you'll get in the newsletter, I think, is better than the cheat sheet. So definitely look into Jessie Kniff. That is how I wrote my blurb. That is how I will continue to write my blurbs. And at some point, I would love to be making the money where I can just pay Jessie to write my blurbs for me, because she does a fantastic job. The next thing I did was I bought Fictionary's Storyteller subscription. So I pay for the year-long subscription, which is $169. When I bought in the Fictionary live classes that taught you how to edit and how to outline and how to write a scene and everything that goes with that was included in the Storyteller subscription. It has now moved up to the premium subscription and the coaching subscription. So you will have to pay a little bit more for that if you want the live classes. I think they're well worth it. I think they're worth it even if you just pay for the month to month, long enough to take a course that you want and then drop back down to a lower level or what have you. I think those classes are gold. They're super worth it. Like, just, I have learned so much about story structure and storytelling. And as a discovery writer, that's super helpful, because when we discovery write, we're writing based on what we intuitively know a story should be or do. And so that creates a situation where when my mind's already got all of that information, it will write pretty close to the structure that the story needs to be, and it will take into account everything else that comes in with that, everything that I've learned from Fictionary and from taking those courses. And then the software is just really, really handy to be able to edit everything in. I don't like entering everything into a spreadsheet. I really don't. Like, you could totally do Fictionary on your own. I did do Fictionary on my own the first time before I was able to buy it. And I did it on paper because I really just don't like entering things into spreadsheets because I want the spreadsheet to work a certain way. And the way that people have programmed spreadsheets is not the way my brain thinks about spreadsheets. And so it causes problems. But if you're a spreadsheet person, you can absolutely do Fictionary without having to pay for the software. Now, there are some cool things that the software offers that you can't do on your own. I highly suggest looking into them. You can go over to Fictionary's website and Fictionary's Circle community, and there's tons of information in there. And then I've got 2 videos on Fictionary as well that I can link to in the cards. But all that to say, Fictionary is the reason I didn't have to hire a developmental editor. Between Fictionary and my beta readers, I was able to craft a story that has been getting 4 and 5 stars. Every review I've gotten. I've yet to have somebody come to me and say, this story was incohesive and I couldn't follow it, and you've got this plot hole here and this plot hole here and this plot hole here. Now, that's not going to be the case for everybody. I understand that. There are definitely people where story structure is really hard for them, and keeping track of what's going on in their story is difficult for them, or they're just a newer writer. And so having that developmental editor and having that outside input is going to be really important. For me personally, I've already been writing. By the time I wrote this book, I'd been writing for 7 years. I had written multiple fan fiction novels. I've written more than 1 million words, the first million being in fan fiction, and I'm working on my second million in original fiction. So I've got a lot under my belt already. And I could confidently take what I was learning in Fictionary and apply it and be able to take that proverbial step back and see my manuscript from the reader's perspective to a degree. And then my beta readers came in and helped me find the things that needed to shift and needed to be different. And then some of the things that they suggested I didn't change because intuitively I could feel that that was wrong for the story. So I'm speaking mostly to discovery writers here because I know a lot of you are intuitive in the way that you function and the way you do things. A lot of us are. And I want you to trust that gut feeling. So if you go through Fictionary and you're like, okay, yeah, no, I still don't understand this, then don't listen to me and trust your gut and do what's going to work for you. But for me personally, I got through Fictionary. I got to the end of multiple classes and I was like, okay, I think I can do this. I've got this figured out. I know what to do now. And I know when to say, actually, what Fictionary wants me to do isn't right for the story, and shift away from it and do what's right for the story. And that has been proving very useful at this point because people like the book and it's doing well. And I've got people excited about what I'm coming out with next. So this is the next thing that I spent money on. And this is the biggest thing I spent money on. I bought my own ISBNs, and I bought the pack of 100 ISBNs here in the United States for $575. That is one of the things we'll talk about here in a minute about how to significantly lower how much you spend. But that is definitely something that if having your own ISBN is important to you, I would save up the $600. 100% I would save it up because I have already, I needed an ISBN for the ebook. I needed an ISBN for the paperback. If I choose to go hardcover, which I don't know if I can. Let me show you. It's really thin. It's not very big. So I don't know if I can go hardback with this. But if I were to go hardback with it, it would need its own ISBN. And then my short story I turned into an audiobook that needed its own ISBN. When I get the rights back to that story in November of this year, I will need another ISBN to turn that into a short story to put up on my own platform. So just there's a lot where you're like, oh, 10 ISBNs will be enough because the 10 pack of ISBNs is like $350, I think, or maybe it's $375, somewhere in there. You think that'll be plenty. And then you don't realize how fast you will go through them. So if having your own ISBN is important to you, I would 100% save up the money and buy your own ISBNs because it's just been so nice to not be panicking of, wait, I only have 10 ISBNs. What am I going to do? I don't have to panic. I have 100 and I've used 3 of them and it's fine and everything's fine. We'll talk about how you can set that aside if having your own ISBN isn't important to you. And that does drop $600 off of what you're going to pay to self-publish your own book. The next thing I did is also one of those optional things. I paid for the 2-year plan with WordPress, and that ended up being $66.55. So that was important to me to have my own website. That's something that I wanted full control over. I wanted it to be ElaineCanyon.com. I didn't want anything else off to the side. So that, for me, that was important. That might not be important to you, and that's a good way to cut costs. But I wanted to own my domain as well, and so I bought my domain. That was another $12 that I spent, and that was also important to me, to have full control over my domain. So WordPress does give me a free domain name. I don't use it because if I ever decide to transfer, I want to know that I own my domain and I can move it where I want to move it. Next is I bought a BookFunnel subscription. Now, BookFunnel is a distributor that will get your book out to people through art copies and things like that. I had a coupon to be able to get the $150 plan for $100. And so I used that. And that means next year, when it comes around, I will need to pay the full $150. I won't get that $50 off. But I very much think that it's worth it to have the whole set because it will integrate with MailerLite and I can do newsletter promos with it. And there's a whole bunch I can do with that. We'll talk in a minute here about how you don't actually need all of that because the main thing you need BookFunnel for is to get your art copies out. So BookFunnel will distribute your art copies to your readers. They can do a whole bunch of stuff like put watermarks on it or put this copy is specifically for and then the email address they sent it to, so that it helps to cut down on people sharing your book before it's actually out. That is something to think about and consider. Story Origin is another group that does this. I will talk in a minute after why I chose BookFunnel and not Story Origin. But for right now, I'll just say that BookFunnel was a better fit for me than Story Origin was. And then the last thing that I ended up spending money on was only for the print version. And it was almost $19 in proof copies because I ended up having to buy 3 separate proof copies. I did one through Amazon because Amazon was ready first. I actually read through that copy so that I could fix anything. I found typos that I missed in the ebook. I actually found one typo that I missed in the ebook, which was very validating. But I found that typo and I got it fixed in the ebook as well and got it fixed in the print book. But it was just to make sure that I got the formatting out right. And I was grateful that I did that. I formatted in Word. I will not do that again. It was very frustrating. It turned out fine and it was good. But it was a lot of headache and a lot of time and effort. So I am looking into formatting software options. I know everybody loves Vellum. I am not a Mac user. I don't enjoy Apple. I worked in the tech industry for multiple years. I think it was like 5 years that I worked in the tech industry, and having to interact with Mac products was just a pain in the butt. So I know everyone says they're superior. When you are coming at it from the technical admin side of things, you don't like Mac usually. Most tech admins I've met agree with me that Mac just doesn't want to interact with anything. So on a personal basis, I'm not buying a Mac. I will stick with PCs. But all of that aside, I need a formatting software. So I'm either going to look into getting Atticus, or I might see about getting InDesign. I've used InDesign a lot. I know how to use it. It's just so expensive now to get it. So that will be a cost that will count towards the next book that I publish because, yeah, formatting in Word is a pain in the butt, even with like really good templates. And I found a really good template and I still was having problems with it. So just be aware, if you're formatting your own book in Word, take a deep breath and tell yourself it might be a headache, and then jump in and be okay when it's a headache. So that's everything I spent and what I spent it on. And like I said, that came out to just over $1,000, $1,177. Now, you don't have to spend that much because there's a lot of things in there that I did personally because they were important to me and they aligned with the goals that I had. So if I were to strip away everything that wasn't absolutely necessary for me, in that cost, what would I cut it down to? Well, the first thing is I would take out the ISBNs. You can get ISBNs that are controlled by other people, whether it's Amazon or Draft to Digital, what have you. There are lots of other people who will give you a free ISBN. They have control over that ISBN. So just keep that in mind. They are the ones who have bought it from Bowker. They have listed themselves as a publisher and they run it that way. Or if it's Amazon, it's not technically an ISBN, it's an AISN or an ASN, AISN, something like that. We'll put it up here. That is a completely separate number from an ISBN, and it's only applicable to Amazon and Amazon's catalog. Just like if you take the free ISBN from Draft to Digital, they will go through and they own that ISBN, they own the metadata behind it, but you can't take that ISBN to a different platform and use that one. So keep that in mind. If you're okay with that and you don't feel like you need to own your ISBNs, then more power to you. If I had chosen not to buy my own ISBNs, that would have cut nearly $600 out of what I spent. So that's the first way that you can drop it down, is you cut that out. The next thing you can cut down is you don't have to spend the whole $200 for ProWritingAid. You can sign up for their month to month and only use it for as long as it takes you to copy edit your book. I do know of authors who do that. They get away with using it for 1 month to 2 months, and they get all of their copy editing done on their manuscript, and it's about $20. A little bit more, sometimes 25, depending on what plan you sign up for. You can get it pretty darn quick if you stay on that month to month and then just cancel when you're finished. The same can be said of Fictionary. Fictionary's base level without having access to the classes is $20 a month. And so if you want that Fictionary software experience, you can pay for as long as you need to be able to use Fictionary software to edit your book. And you could probably get away with $40 to $60 spent, and then download the clean manuscript and you're good to go and you can cancel the subscription. So I talked about before how I had bought BookFunnel and I had a coupon, but I paid for the whole $150 subscription, annual subscription. You don't have to do that. They have a $20 annual subscription, and that $20 will allow you to send books out and send out art copies. That is the biggest thing. Advanced reader copies being able to be sent out, that is the number one thing you need BookFunnel for. And for $20 a year, they will do that. And you don't have to worry about any of the other stuff. But for $20, they will send it out. This is why I originally chose BookFunnel over StoryOrigin. StoryOrigin will not let me distribute art copies unless I'm paying the $100 annual subscription model. And they have a whole bunch that comes into that. They will do landing pages for you. They'll do website pages for you. They'll do, they've got a whole thing set up for beta reading. Like there's a whole ton of stuff that StoryOrigin does inside that $100 annual subscription. And it's a ton, and I definitely think it's well worth the money. But for how I want to function in my author business, BookFunnel was the better choice. And BookFunnel did a better job at getting me what I needed. It's also, and this is nothing against StoryOrigin, as a user, like a reader, I don't like interacting with StoryOrigin. I like interacting with BookFunnel. And that was my biggest deciding factor, was that as a reader, whenever I'm trying to interact with StoryOrigin, it drives me nuts. It really does. It doesn't work the way I want it to. It's not user-friendly. There's a whole bunch that I don't like about StoryOrigin as the reader looking through the newsletter promos. And so being able to be on BookFunnel as a reader is a much happier place for me. So as an author, I wanted to make sure I was in that space. And I talked to some bookstagrammers and had found out from several bookstagrammers that they don't like StoryOrigin's interface either. And those were the bookstagrammers I was actually going to be sending books to, sending out advanced reader copies to. So as a business decision, I wanted to make sure that I was providing an experience that my readers were going to enjoy and want to come back to again. So knowing that my target audience preferred BookFunnel, I went with BookFunnel. And again, I planned originally to just go for the $20 model. I had the income to be able to go for the higher tier and spend the $150, spend the $100 and know that later on I could keep spending $150 annually to have all of the bells and whistles with BookFunnel that I wanted to have. I like the email integration. I like being able to do newsletter swaps and do promos and make it so that I'm able to get my name out there a little bit better. And I also like that it integrates with MailerLite without any issues, and that there's the option to sell audiobooks on there as well. Because that is something that I'm really excited about, and is a video that is in the works and coming, because I'm going to show you how I recorded my own audiobook and what I did to make that happen. Things that I would not suggest you cut back on are things like buying print copies, proof copies of your book from wherever you decide to do your distribution from. So for me, I had 2 from Amazon that I bought and 1 from Ingram Spark that I bought. And those were inexpensive. They ended up being about $6 a piece. It ended up being $18.60 to get all 3 of them and have them sent to me. Super easy, not a big deal. And I'm glad I did it, just because it allowed me to adjust and shift things so that I had a really professional looking product, that everything was lined up and the design looked nice and was right. And then the book Blurb Magic course by Jessie Kniff, I cannot suggest it enough. It made a huge difference, and having someone else write your blurb can get super expensive. And it's just nice to know that you're the one who's in control of that. Now, sure, if it scares you to death to write your own blurb and you have no desire to learn how, then by all means spend the money. But we're talking about a shoestring budget here. And learning how to do things on your own is what makes shoestring possible, because you're investing time over money. So I think that Jessie Kniff's course is well worth the money, and I can't suggest it enough. It's just that good. It really is that good. Could you get away with writing your blurb just from the free stuff she offers? Probably. You probably could. Would I suggest it? No, I'd buy the course. Like, I honestly would. I'd just buy the course. It's not that much at $67, and it's well worth your investment. Other things that you could cut out, the website. I spent a lot of money on a website and a domain. I spent almost $100 on the 2. And those are things that there are free options out there. There are options where you can, like a Substack can act as your author newsletter. It can act as your website. Like, a Substack can do a lot right now. If you're not worried about having .wordpress.com at the end of your website, then that's an option too. I could have chosen to go free and said, well, I'm just going to do Elaine Canyon ElaineCanyon.wordpress.com. That would be an option that I could do. I also could have just chosen to do a landing page. Linktree, Metricool, all of those just have a landing page with links. And I could have done that and done links to my books and links to my social media and called that my website. There's free options that you can do that make it so that you aren't having to spend a lot of money on stuff. If you use MailerLite, you can create landing pages. And on the free plan, one of those landing pages gets to have like the name that you want it to have to an extent. And so that's another place that you can have your website and just have it be a single page with your name, maybe your picture, what you're writing, and where your books are. Like, it can be as simple as that. I know some authors who are Amazon only, and they use their Amazon author page as their website. And that's where you go. And that's where it takes you to be able to learn about them. So lots of options for you if you don't want to pay for a website and a domain. Now, if you take out all of those things that I spent money on and cut it back to a true shoestring, because my shoestring was a little different. My shoestring has investment from my spouse and I. My husband made sure that we had a little bit to set aside so that way I could turn this into a career, that I could shift out of being a graphic designer. And I'm in that shift right now. I only do graphic design work for longtime customers at this point, and I'm slowly shifting away from even doing that and putting all of my time and effort into writing. So for me, shoestring was doing as much as I could on my own, but also making sure that I was building the foundation for a business. That's why I invested in certain things like 100 ISBNs, like a website and owning my domain, and having the higher tier of BookFunnel, things like that. If you're trying to shoestring as much as possible, cutting all of that back, you definitely could publish for $200. If you're designing your own cover, if you're doing all of your own formatting work, if you're only paying for Fictionary and for ProWritingAid for a few months to be able to get all of the work done as quickly as possible and then canceling those subscriptions, totally could do it for $200 or less. And again, this is assuming you've designed your own cover. And even if you're not designing your own cover, if you remember my video where I talked about pre-mades and I talked about getcovers.com, you can get an ebook cover for $10. And then Amazon and Draft to Digital will both create a wraparound out of that for you. You can do that and have everything still come in under that $200 range or around that $200 range. It all just depends on what your goals are and what your foundation is. So I bring all of this together because I want you to not look at the numbers that people put out there, because I've seen people who put out, oh yeah, my first book, it cost me $3,000 to publish. And when I first saw that, trying to make the transition from fan fiction to original fiction, I looked at that and said, I can't do that. I can't put $3,000 into a book that I don't know if it's going to sell. That doesn't work. And it was disheartening and it was discouraging, and I almost gave up. I almost walked away and said, this is a bad idea and I will just publish in fan fiction for the rest of my life. I did. Because nobody is talking about how you could potentially do this for $200. No one's talking about that. So I want to make sure that you have the information out there to know that it doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be multiple thousands of dollars. And even mine is still pretty darn low. I managed to publish my first book for just over $1,000. And that is with setting up the foundation to let me move forward and become a career author. Like, that's with the foundation. So if you're a new author who's trying to publish on a shoestring budget, please don't panic when you see everybody else who says, oh, well, I spent $3,000 to publish my first book. Please know that there are options out there that can bring this cost down to as low as $200 to $300. And for a lot of people, that's doable. And it can be doable for you. So yes, if you want to lay the foundation for the ability to have a business, then by all means, be prepared to spend $1,000 or so. But don't look at the people who are saying, oh, well, I spent $2,000 just to have a developmental editor go through my book. Don't look at those and decide that you can't write and that you can't do this, because that's wrong. You absolutely can do this. And it doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg. And that's the whole reason that this is one of the pillars of my channel, because I was the person who walked into self-publishing, looked around and said, oh, so traditional publishing has gatekeepers and self-publishing is a pay-to-win game. And that's not true. Anybody can self-publish. And if you have a story to tell, you should be able to tell that story. All that to say, I hope that this has inspired you. I hope it's helped you to want to self-publish. I hope that it has given you that confidence that you can do this and you can afford to do it. And I want to know down in the comments what you're self-publishing. What are you working towards? What is the goal? And I want us to be able to support each other in that, because you can self-publish for as little as $200 to $300. And we need to be talking about that more. So if all that sounds good, I hope you'll hit that bell notification so that you know when I publish my next video. I'll make sure to post it in the community page too so that you know when it's coming. And I'll see you next time.